All right, it is 6 o'clock. We will call this February 3rd Common Council meeting in order. If you'll please rise and join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Just make sure that this is recording. Says it is. Okay. All right, very good. Clerk Treasurer Price, will you please call roll?
Wilmore.
Here.
Spencer Henry.
Present.
Aaron Cabral. Here. Cody Nelson. Harry Higgs.
Here. I did not hear from Cody, so he'll probably come streaking in here in just a second, but all right, very good. Thank you, Julie. The January 6th meeting minutes have been presented review. Are there any additions, subtractions, deletions? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Jabro. Denny. Any discussion on the January 6th meeting minutes submitted? All right, hear none. Is there got a motion in a second? All in favor of approving the January 6th meeting minutes, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the department head reports have been submitted for review. Without objection, the report will be incorporated in reference to the meeting minutes. Which you guys want to discuss those, or does that sound sufficient to incorporate them in the minutes? We didn't have Dick Van Sickle submitted his today, and then Craig Myers submitted a water usage after, but you guys did get, I believe, 3 of their department heads reports. So did you guys get Dick's report today that I sent? It's toward the tail end of the day. He sends via scanner, so I try to get it to you guys, but he's been busy doing some things out the plant, so you will have that in your email if you look at the probably about 3:30 or 4 o'clock. All right, next item of business is the CCMG 2025-1. As I said in the Board of Works meeting, we submitted this last Wednesday with the help of Butler Fairman, and it was a good time to do it. We always send it a little bit earlier than the deadline just to make sure if they kick it back for any mistakes or anything that wasn't right. And then we found out Friday that NDOT's server went down. So everybody was trying to get everything submitted. I checked with Marcia today and ours went through. So we don't have to worry about anything not being submitted. We changed it up a little bit this year. We kept the Market Street and Adams Street, which we submitted last year. We also added some microsurfacing and HMA, which is Aaron's preventative maintenance, to cap out our full 500,000 that we budgeted for the CCMG. So didn't go over anything. We just thought if we're going to budget that amount, why not get the full match from NDOT? So at worst, they'll say no to parts of it or all of it, which we certainly hope not. Hope it doesn't happen. But at the end of the day, Aaron said in the past they do reject some of these just because of the amount of submittals, but they do give you the big projects. So fingers crossed on that. That was a long process getting that submitted this year because of all the different roads and the different things that we had to enter into the LTAP system. So I'll keep you guys posted on progress for that.
That's the same one for Market Street.
Same one.
So it looks like the total here was less this year than we have paid out than before.
So we did we budgeted 500,000 and we added, well, the quotes and everything from last year will probably go up. Obviously that was 2024. So we left ourselves a little wiggle room, but at the end of the day, I've never been on a project that's went perfect. But if we get the full amount requested, that was pretty close to our 75-25 match. So a lot of math involved with it, adding the HMA and the microsurfacing, which last year we did not do any HMA or microsurfacing due to Aaron he had to use some of his budget to cover a couple other things. So essentially, if this is approved, he gets these projects done, we're caught back up in 1 year, which is pretty good. So there's definitely some roads that need some general maintenance to it. So this would be a huge asset to our road inventory that you guys should all have passwords now through the GIS to see the Paisley rating for what the condition of the road is. So that will certainly help get our numbers up, which in the future helps for CCMG grants. So as far as we know, the governor is going to keep CCMG rolling. There's some things that was cut, but CCMG was not one of them. So that's good news.
There wasn't an issue last year about going on around the corner to Adams Street from Market.
Mhm.
Stretch there.
Nope. The only issue we had was the bids that come in that were all high.
For some reason I thought there was an issue on how those short.
We did some, we brought Frontier Communications submitted some fiber permits. Knowing that we could possibly have a project there, we had a meeting with everybody in the room to see how we could change things up to where that would not conflict with our project when we got rolling with it, but everything else was pretty standard. There was a couple small changes with some water lines and all that, but the project itself didn't have the scoping of it was no different than what was submitted in 2024. So that might have been what you think about was the fiber. We had to change some locations of where they were going to bore and where they was going to set their their pedestals. So which that area is what? It's all limestone. So they're going to have challenges regardless down there. So having them do the flower pots, which is the ones that's flush with the ground, is going to be a challenge because you get 6 inches in and you hit limestone. So I believe Frontier is done with that area. They are completely out of the way. So if we do get approved for CCMG 2025-1, we know where they have submitted as built. So we know where all their lines are, where it won't conflict with any of our contractors' work. So we're on target that if we get approved, we're boots on the ground. We're going to start bids and get going with it. So or start letting the project. So I'll keep you guys posted. It's usually sometime around March where they put the letters out to who got approved and who did not. So any questions on CCMG 2025-1? All right, next item of business is the Morning Heights Cemetery. I will let Julie's had some phone calls come in regarding this. This was the mirrors.
Mhm.
Yep, the mirrors that we
Yeah, several
about 3
people.
years ago.
Want to be put on a waiting list to buy plots out there. The Mears family, has given extra acreage and it has been, I believe, flagged out and plotted into the weight and all that.
Yep.
We were trying to figure out, because we've had people wanting to know how much it's going to cost for plots. And so I'm doing a little bit of research. I had a recommendation of selling those grave spaces just to be brought before the council to make a decision what to do, because they were $8. That was how many years ago? But the recommendation was to sell the grave spaces for $500 a lot. And also adding a perpetuation fee of $150 for an at-need burial payable to the city for ongoing maintenance for the cemetery. And then the basic cost to open and close a grave right now is $600, which would be payable to Alan George because he's the one who does those. It'd be nothing for the city. And then there would also need to be maybe some rules regarding installation of a foundation for the granite headstones to be implemented. So if we decide to move forward with doing this, there would have to be some rules and regulations for the size of the headstone foundations. Needing, what did he say, 4 inches, like all the way around. And it would need to be a minimum of 34 inches deep, I believe is what he said.
And Miriam was
So
updated on all this. Did she speak to you on what we need to do to move forward on this? She threw out several different options. So obviously with people coming in and this being a new piece of land,
We
What kind of-
suggested a cemetery board, but
There are several options. One would be just managing it outright from the council. And with that, you would just need to do ordinances for like setting up the price schedule. If you would want to do a cemetery board, you can designate the Board of Works to act as the cemetery board. You would have to have an ordinance passed that would establish that. Or you can do a cemetery board with appointees, and I believe they have to be residents of the county or city, and they have to be plot owners. There's a cemetery board of regents, which is very similar. I don't remember if that's the resident of the county, but they would have, regardless, have to be plot owners.
That's for to be a board member.
Yes.
Okay,
And you would need to have an ordinance passed there and to establish terms for the board members and. Under the board, you can create a cemetery department if you want someone directly working on that, kind of like the Parks Department that would then. Report to the Board of Works or whoever the cemetery board is.
as of right now, we have 7 people on a waiting list wanting to possibly purchase a plot out there. So I told them, I said, we'll put you on a list, and when we find out, when we move forward with it, that they would be the first people to call. I do know that they're within the stipulations for the agreement that the Mears family wanted to set aside 36 for family and descendants.
For theirs,
Yes.
Yeah.
36 plat.
Yes.
for their family descendants.
And yes, and what did it say for 100 years of their descendants, and then if no one, then they could sell those off after 100 years. I believe that's what the legal papers said in there for their agreement.
Oh, for the legal description. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Those 36 plots.
So again, with this being basically a newly purchased piece of land with, you guys did receive the survey from 40th Parallel. Julie getting several requests that'd be the whatever the common council, whatever the consensus of the council to the next steps moving forward for this Morning Heights section. I don't know if it's called section 2, but what's the consensus of the board?
I have a question.
Sure.
So how's it being run now, the Richmond Cemetery? Is there a board or how's it being done?
I don't believe there's a board.
No,
I think it was one of those things where people just came in and they paid for, their burial plot. They paid their $8 and
To the mirrors.
believe it was paid to the city of Delphi
Okay.
because it's a city, it's considered a city.
Got it.
Yeah.
it's an acre.
I had a question. What's the potential, number of plots
That was.
available in this edition?
It
And
shows
did the mayor
120 in here.
pay for those 34 or?
I believe the agreement was that they would,
There's 120.
120.
Yeah.
in the sale of those. They would sell that property with the stipulation that 36 of those would be set aside for their family.
Mike, Caroline, I can get you a copy of this if you want.
We've discussed this for years.
Is that all right?
Yes. And it's,
So when you was on the council and they had, before this land was purchased and then more plots were added, with the,
Did you have a board before?
no,
Okay.
it's a city property. and
Mm. So it was just handled through them.
But, so. I don't know. I just was curious as to what Lemires is. I mean, the city paid for the cemetery, the land. But then Lemires asked for 34 graves. Wow.
36.
36, you know.
36.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think this was done in 2022. Is when the work started.
So they sold the city.
20,
To double it in size.
yeah, it was all this was done in 2022. So I believe it's 1 acre of land and then, yeah. So I don't think there's, like she said, I don't think there's ever been a per se board or means other than they came in and paid the clerk for a platted burial spot. And to my knowledge, so when someone purchases that, that is actually their piece of land. That is obviously their loved one or them are going to, so it's interesting how this all, there's a lot more to it than I was aware of, but yeah, so essentially if someone buys lot 50 or not lot, burial spot 54, that's their piece of land, right? That's their final resting spot. So not having a board before and this just going to the clerk's office to pay, and us getting several requests, need to be a consensus of the common council on what direction to go with these new plats. And you guys did I sent you the plat, the survey, the agreements from the Mearses and all that from 2022. That was all in place. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at that, but again, we're just trying to get it to where when they come in to the clerk's office, there's a streamlined way that we all know that we're doing.
So in regard to a board, whether it be through the Board of Works or through the council or their own separate board, what is the protocol necessarily? So like, let's say someone wants to come, they want to purchase their however many spots that they want, then like they have to come in front of the board.
Yeah,
to
that's where I
request
was
that
confused.
things
What would
be
they vote on, I guess, or what would the Board of Works have?
Through the sale of burial spot.
So they
Is
would have to
basically
approve what would be the criteria for approving it? I mean, why would we say no, I guess?
It would be, so you could still funnel the payment through the clerk's office. The board would be, overseeing like establishment of the pay schedule or the fee
Okay, so it's
schedule.
more fees.
And, the deeds, I believe, could be issued by the board. Right now, by default under Indiana law, the council manages. So if you choose not to create a separate board, by default, the common council of Delphi manages. So you can continue on with that and
So does that look like if, let's say, same scenario, someone wants to purchase a few plots, that would be an agenda item at a city council meeting to go through, to approve based on a fee schedule, or that's.
Yeah, so would the council just be basically the ordinance part of it?
yeah, so
Okay.
you'd be the governance.
Got it.
As
That makes
far-
sense.
Yeah.
And you could establish, okay, here's how someone would go
I see,
to
yeah.
purchase. And if that would be through Julie's office, then
Seems simple.
And that would be via an ordinance. So when someone did come in and they paid Julie, them appearing in front of the Board of Works essentially is, and if we're gonna review them being approved to move forward, what would be I guess I'm confused on what the regulation, how would we tell them no? If they've went through the process and
We've made the payment.
we made the payment, I don't know what the criteria would be for us approving or not approving their purchasing a
So-
plat.
you wouldn't be approving their purchase. They would just come and purchase like the plot. What your role would be is setting up the fee schedule, arranging for maintenance of, and the rules of the cemetery.
Hmm.
So anytime anyone wants to purchase, you would not have to have them appear and do a vote on there.
Okay, which there's already rules, Aaron has, I mean, it's gonna be the same, it's an extension of a current cemetery. So whatever rules are in place, I don't know that they might not
Basically, you're
need
paying-
updated because I don't know what it says, but
The price
Update
point.
and amend for the
Cost.
size of the foundation.
the headstone,
And the cost, most
Mhm.
likely.
Yep.
And then however many plots that you have that need to be sold. So the 120 minus the 36.
that makes sense to everyone. Well,
Well, I think if I'm looking at this right, originally this, you have to ask yourself, why is the city in the business of owning the cemetery?
it's a good question.
Great
So then you
question.
ask why? Well, originally, if I understand this right, it was for if somebody couldn't afford to be buried, you had to put them in a pine box. Put them in the ground. Years ago, that's how that used to be. So we gotta be careful here, because if you look at the overall geographic and how many cemeteries are here, somebody could just come up and buy these up for a price, and you really haven't done
Buy 'em
what
all
the
at once.
purpose was for. So how you separate that out, I don't know, but I think before you do anything, you gotta understand what is the real reason for this cemetery and why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Well, I do know a couple of people that are on the list have family members that are buried there.
And that's understandable.
Right, and so they asked to be put on the list because one gentleman and his wife, like his father and his mother and brother are buried there, and he said, I would like to be in the same, but he said there's isn't anything left, so he's like first on the list, and he said, I absolutely would like to be considered for buying plots for my wife and I.
But my guess is alluding to what you said, that there's nothing that says that someone from the public can't come in and just purchase them all, right? There's probably no language that says if John has 5 family members, he has first rights.
Well, like
right?
Mears.
So
Right.
other than the 36, I'm saying there's nothing that says they cannot purchase whatever they want, right? It doesn't matter who's buried there, anything other than what's in the legal description in the contract with the Mears. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, that's my
So,
understanding.
I guess my concern is you don't want to squeeze out the people who really can afford to have one.
Sure.
You want to keep it reasonable for those people. But if you don't have some way of doing that, I mean, there's not that many open plots around here anywhere.
Right.
Places.
Is there language that could be added to not resell plots, like
What
no,
you're saying
no
is
resell,
They
so
can buy
plots?
them up for 600, so they're what?
Right,
Exactly.
So if you buy them, you
look at
can't,
price to other
you can't,
cemeteries, it's not.
try to sell them and make a profit
Yes.
from it, or
Mhm.
And I will say there, I do have letters in here, like transfer of cemetery plots for people who want to transfer over to someone else. Like this one just says, I would like for you to please transfer the plot owned by such and such to such and such. This plot is in whatever section. There are only 2 plots. I would like to have both of them go to, and then they,
which is
Like
probably
they've
a
written-
family member, right?
yeah, so
'Cause
they've written letters and said, I would like to transfer these plots. It wasn't I would like to sell these. It was, I want to transfer these to this person.
Right,
Please.
but that door is not gonna be closed because we don't have control of if
Right.
someone, do I think that would happen?
And that one
No,
was
but
just a
you just
resale
don't know,
price.
right?
Mhm.
So I would hope someone would not try to make a profit off of something of this nature, but
I was thinking about it, but maybe.
Well, I'm just thinking that if the cost used to be $8 and the suggestion was, for 500 with a 150 perpetual fee for, an at-need burial. That you may be able to keep somebody from doing a thing. If you leave it at $8, then yes, that very well.
you know, which
could
this,
happen.
this price is still in comparison to Lafayette, West Lafayette, the cemeteries over there is
I was gonna say, what
It's
is
a couple-
standard? I
couple
haven't
$1,000.
know.
Here, it's like-
Yeah.
yeah,
That
so
was
sold out.
that's a-
When I did the research on it, that was he said that's like a standard. So that was the suggestion.
it's sad we gotta,
I think Maple Line's about $800 probably,
how much?
$800.
I think that's what I hear is like a frequently
And we
average.
bought one for my brother-in-law's wife.
Okay. So what is the consensus on the board for moving forward? Do you want us to have Miriam draft up an ordinance with the rates that clerk treasurer Price presented? Or, what route do you guys wish to
I
go?
would
But
suggest
we
increase,
don't want any more to add up. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just say, I would say we should increase to 800 a plot. And additionally add a clause to every sale that these are not to be transferred. Like maybe all the new ones, maybe the old ones you can leave transferred over, but all these new ones are not to be transferred. They go to the seller and they do not get.
I think the reason for that is if someone in the family doesn't pass within a certain time frame, it goes on to their kin.
Mhm.
That's,
Yeah, that's gotta be-
yeah, the transfer is not to get, it's a kin thing. It's a next to kin or,
Or resell.
I would-
right,
but
yeah,
I think
the
it's
resale would be a better language
But it's
to,
completely out of our control. Like, I could just transfer it to you, give me $800 or $1,000 because I bought it for 800, like. So
But
the
it's
fact
still
you leave it
reselling.
open to transfer, because I mean, we all go.
I guess
eventually.
resale for I don't know if you can language it resale.
I'm just
We're trying to do the good intent, right? Of don't resell it to
get
make a
back to
profit,
the
but you still got to
original.
keep the family. If they want to transfer it to their nieces or nephews next to kin or whatever,
That's-
that's kind of the purpose of leaving that. So I get what you're saying.
But we all go eventually, right? So like if you buy this plot, like you're planning on using it.
Right, but if
So-
you live to be 112,
And your daughter
Right.
dies before you.
yes, you can't, the
Like-
transfer time is unknown, right? Until we go. So,
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
Transfer.
so can we note that if we do go that route, if there's any kind of language, I don't know that it's even a possibility of, I'm sure that's in there for a reason for family and all that, but something to the extent to protect the plots from being, I guess, resold for a profit, or, the intent is for what Doyle alluded to, but there's some things we
To
don't
hold the
have.
price down and make it so people who didn't have the money.
Right.
I mean, there's people who come in and buy all this up.
And my
Um,
recommendation would be $800.
And I got a question so the cemeteries, a lot of the townships have control of maintenance and mowing and do a lot of things like that. Do they have their own board, or is it just handled within the trustee?
I would say they have a board, but I don't.
How was it when you were here, Carolyn? Was it just like the council did it and you just,
Well.
I don't even know that
it's
they-
been So
Yeah.
long that there was no activity because, at $8, of course, those
Right.
lots all win.
right?
And, there's a big section out there that nobody even knows who was buried because they were pauper graves.
Hmm.
Those are probably the ones that he talked about. Nobody, they didn't have the income to,
There's
is that,
a section that you don't know who's buried there.
Mm.
I mean, maybe there's some record.
You're not wrong, because when I look at this book, there's a lot that are not filled in, but there are people buried there that they haven't been filled in the way they should be.
so we might have to get with Mark Smith.
So
Well,
who-
and I asked someone I said that knows it very well. I said, would there be a possibility we could go through this book and see, like maybe even go out there? I know it would take a long time, but go out there a little bit of time and check the book and make sure that it matches up, just to see, like by what you're saying,
Well, they don't want to start digging and
But-
find out that they don't think someone's there, but someone's there. I mean, that,
Doesn't it?
As the former reporter, I can tell you, not very many people record their cemetery deeds anymore at all.
that was something I learned, was the deed part of,
Find one in somebody's paperwork when they go through, but it maybe was never ever brought in.
yeah.
And marked in because there's cemetery deed books, but
Yeah, which is, learned that there was so much more involved to a cemetery than, because I didn't know that you got a deed for a 8x8 square.
like that one and Maple Lawn and the plots are recorded in the recorder's office.
But
I
they're
mean,
not.
see the original platted plots,
Okay.
but most of the deeds aren't. I mean, back in the early 1900s, they brought them in.
Sure.
But like you said, once you buy that, that is your piece of,
It's
Land.
recorded real estate,
you own
right?
that piece of real estate.
Yeah.
Whether
So
they
how did-
bring it in recorded or not.
How did the city acquire it? What did you purchase an amount for those plots? Was it given to you?
There was, do you have that contract that they did in 2022?
And I was reading through it the other day. It
Is-
was all Marty Mears, who is part of the Mears family. But it says that, the understanding made effective date above between the city of Delphi and the descendants of Sherry Mears as represented by John P. Mears, for the purpose of acknowledging a transfer of real estate to expand the Morning Heights Cemetery, so that it may continue to be used as a final resting place for the resident in and around of Delphi, Indiana. And so then it gives on here that the Morning Heights have agreed to convey 2 acres of farm real estate to the city of Delphi for the expansion of Morning Heights Cemetery. The Mears family has expressed interest in securing plots for family members, and specifically for the descendants of Sherry Mears, the prior owner of the real estate, and the spouses of said descendants.
So what did the city pay for the 2 acres? There's still 4 acres next to it. That's, my guess is they're gonna leave that vacant for the next time we go through this, but
Think,
Like
like,
17.
kind of
Carolyn,
do a
was it-
little research.
was it
on
like
this people. I mean,
17,000
this is
an
just
acre?
Coming up, this.
yeah, and we don't have to, we want to at least present it to you, right? Because
Because there's a lot to. this.
it's changed since the $8 a plot. So,
Right here, it says sale price $41,6650. On the finance data, it says complete only that those that apply, but that's what it says on this one is 41.
So
4166.
2.5 rows. For 36 lots, basically.
Yeah, so did you get that?
Yeah, there's only 8 rows in.
Yeah, so that's gonna fill quick.
You
Yeah,
know, that's
I agree.
2.5 rows or a little more
So
than that.
2 acres is what the city paid for
Correct.
to increase the size. I think the reason Mears family gave it to the city a long time ago was they didn't want to maintain it.
Mhm.
So we've spent a lot of money on maintaining that cemetery for years and years.
Well, that was gonna be my question is who does the maintenance on it?
City
We do.
Does.
I know, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, so like how
Street
extensive is it? Is, I guess.
Mowing.
It's contracted out, but
Yeah.
mowing.
Yeah.
650.
Just have to know twice as much. less than that.
4,166.
Yep, and then on the bottom of here, it just says, understanding is mutually agreed and understood between the parties that set aside cemetery plots, the city of Delphi will set aside 36 cemetery plots for use by the descendants of Sherry Mears and their spouses. Non-transferable, the plots are set aside are non-transferable by gift or sale to anyone who is not a descendant of Sherry Mears or a spouse of a descendant of Sherry Mears.
So that kind of answers our question from earlier.
Well,
You
they
could-
sold it cheap enough that you can't. just leave it.
Right.
Hang on. Hang on. So let's get, what this consensus of the board? Do we want to send this back to Miriam? Or to
Draw
look
up
for,
an
to
ordinance.
draw up an ordinance, or do we want to do a little bit further research with it, or? Yeah, so tonight we was just presenting it, so you guys knew that she's getting people that want to come in and, so,
So here's my take. I think we should send it back so that we know what we're sending, have a little more idea what we're sending to Miriam in another meeting.
so send back the feedback from.
Yeah, yeah, let's kind of look at what. we
Like have a
just-
little more
Let us
discussion.
digest this and maybe do a little research and then we'll know what to send to.
So you want to table
And it
this?
may be the
Mhm.
same thing, but
Okay,
I agree.
You want to make a motion
Yeah.
to table it?
I make a motion, we table it till.
Second.
yep, and that's fine. It was, we wanted to at least get the discussion out there to
Yeah.
have Amber, and Miriam's very well versed in this whole thing. She's been a part of it, I believe, since 2022 when it all transpired. So she's very aware of everything. So we'll kick back the comments from the council to her that you have, right, Amber? And me and Julie will update her as well.
Is there
So
any restrictions that we know of that's on there now? Like you can't buy a lot unless I heard it say that you lived in the county or the city. I mean, that's what we kind of need to look at. Maybe there's an income limit.
yeah, I looked through the city's hard drive to see if there's any kind of language or covenants or something that said, you know, the things that you can and can't do, but it's so old. I think that they started doing this there was nothing in our data, I'll put it that way. So which again reflects the $8 a plat. So now starting fresh today with 2 acres and moving forward, we felt it was best to have some kind of process to where moving forward with it. So
I mean, there are some really old ordinance books up there, but it would take probably forever to dig through to be able to find whatever goes with this.
We could
So
check with
moving
other
forward-
cemeteries and
Yeah,
find
so
out how
moving
they
forward, I
handle
think it
it.
needs.
a lot of them are
updated.
controlled by the trustees, do a lot of the maintenance on them and handle a lot of the cemeteries in the county. So go ahead.
What day was that contract?
It says effective date, August 8th of 2023. Is when this agreement came up. And then. The. Sale was signed on 8/7/23.
7/23.
Yeah, it was, the sale date was 8/7/23, and then the contract. About like the plots and all that stuff was signed. I'm sorry, date of sale, sorry, 7/31/23, date from form received 8/9/23.
All right.
So this was received at county assessor's office on 8/9/23.
Thank you.
Sorry, made a mistake.
That's a 7.
And then the letter itself was dated August 8th,
8/9 was when I was reported.
so the day before it was received in the assessor's office.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to table. We'll go ahead and. So let's get that out of the way first, and then we'll go back to hear some additional input, just because this is something new. So I have a motion to table this, send it back to Miriam for further review to see what the next steps will be for the common council to take forward. So is there a second to table this?
I think Cody's
Right.
second it.
Cody, second. Okay. All in favor of tabling the Morning Heights Cemetery plat, sale and procedure moving forward signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We had a couple questions, so go ahead.
Twice that amount. Yeah. that's the hilltop properties.
Yeah, this one just says the 40.
You say the comment?
I do that there's been
Okay.
additional,
Yeah, I know.
I do that the notes, there's been additional money have to be paid out to survey it and to flag it and all that.
Yeah, it
stuff.
just
So-
says here 41,6650 to 2 of the mirrors each. And then there was another Hilltop Properties for $16,666. And it says that it didn't have to be
Where's Hilltop at?
appraised because it was under 25,000.
Say that.
I've never
Hilltop one
heard.
again. Sorry. The
Where-
Hilltop one?
Hilltop one? I don't know what that would be referred to.
How much?
16,000.
Would that be Mears's, maybe?
So the total, I think, would be like right at 24,999. And it says anything over 25,000, it would have to be appraised. They asked Anita why it wasn't appraised.
I'm curious what the Hilltop is. So,
Yeah,
okay.
the only one I think here was the 41,6650, so.
One time though, right?
Yeah, I did.
Because it
The
sounds like they're saying twice.
surveyor contract alone was 12,000, I think.
They might charge.
And then
for
we
the-
have, like, I have the surveying stuff on here as well, so surveying was in excess.
I don't know where Hilltop's got to be, where they part owners in the thing.
Either that or that's the.
All right.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm trying to find. I don't.
It looks like.
I'll dig deeper into it and see.
Hang on, man. Hang on, man.
and see
Hang on.
about
Hang on,
receipts.
Amber.
Right, the mirror?
That's what I was gonna, yep. Which, so that, is that what's on that agreement? Hilltop or Mears?
I didn't see anything about Hilltop.
Because I've
It
first
just
I've
said-
heard of Hilltop. That's where I thought, was that another
I
cemetery?
didn't see anything that said anything about Hilltop.
Yeah, I put that, it was 2 separate checks written to the mirror and Hilltop.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I didn't see anything in here that said anything about Hilltop anything,
So it's just a,
so.
Yeah.
probably an offset of their.
But I- Yeah, but I'm more than willing to look back at like our receipt stuff from this time frame to see exactly.
Oh, I don't care, I just didn't want you to
Yeah.
think you only
No,
paid
no, no.
$4,000.
I'm glad that you said that because I don't have that in here, but
Right.
I can look back at the receipt stuff and see for that specific date exactly why that would be reported as it was. To see where maybe the misconception or misunderstanding or.
This was reported like August 8th of 20.
And it might have been broken down
Yep.
per acre.
Deed, I mean, were there 2 mirrors and Hilltop Properties? Were there 3 entities that owned that 2 acres together? Maybe that's why there were separate checks.
So I'm looking at.
Cause that's what I'm wondering, so if you look at the deed, if there's 3 people that are signing it over to the new people, that would give you
Let me
why Hilltop
see.
and there's 2 maybe mirrors that got paid those 3 different checks.
Because these actually, Penny, have your, like your thing on it,
Uh-huh.
so let's look and see what we've got.
See who signed.
Amber, did you have
that.
something?
Should be 3. As Tim was saying, 1 for Martin Mears for our undivided 1/6 interest, 1 to John Mears for a 1/6 interest, and then the rest of it was owned by Hilltop LLC, which is the Mears.
Okay, so we'll have,
6650 was like the sale thing. But when I'm looking at these with Penny that from your office, this one actually does say limited liability company warranty deed, and this one does say the indenture witness that Hilltop Properties.
Yeah.
So this one it was just a little bit deeper in the folder. And then there was one for John P. Mears.
Mhm.
And then, and you're right, it says on undivided 1/6 interest.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
third one
oh, did you find it?
that
Yeah.
says Martin. So
So
you're
that's
right.
the other 4. That's one of them, and then the others. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's where that money comes from. That's out of the 6.
24,900.
All right,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We got it.
Yeah.
we will table this and send it back with Amber for Miriam and Amber's review, and then we'll provide an update in the
The 16th.
March meeting. Is that so?
16th.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, very good.
Wasn't on the federal thing, it just said 4160, something like that.
There's a lot of.
So 1, 2.
All right. So Julie, we will get with Miriam on the discussion tonight, and Amber has notes as well to try to get some kind of better route, I guess, for the March meeting. So only other thing we had for this evening was an announcement, and that announcement is a big date this Saturday. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the guy. His name's Bill Schock, local firefighter for Delphi. He was going to retire after 60 years of service. So the Delphi Fire Department's having a retirement party for him at noon this Saturday at the firehouse. So if you guys can take a little time out of your day to shake Bill's hand. If you know Bill, he's definitely a icon in our community. He's the one that every year at the parade, he drives the oldest fire truck in the state. So great guy and very well deserved. So again, this Saturday at noon at Delphi Fire Department, I will be presenting an award from the city of Delphi, and I'm sure there's going to be several others as well. So be an exciting day for Bill. That's all. Huh? Thank you. Did I did, and Doyle did, Spencer kind of did, but he's on the other side. Yeah, so any board comments? Nope. Clerk Treasurer Price. Public comments.
I was under the impression that there was supposed to be discussion or an action item about the fire hydrant contract or the water ordinance for how much we should pay for this water.
That is still, actually, Miriam made contact with Frost or whoever it was. Who? Yeah, whoever the attorney was that Marcia Jura reached out to. So they have now made contact, and now there wasn't anything that was going to be until they worked whatever they was going to work out, and we have a route to go with that. So, but we did have contact finally between the two to discuss that. So that was a good starting point with it.
Right, and then the city ordinances that seem to conflict with the current territory agreement.
Yep, that's the second part of Miriam has everything that's transpired of getting it fluid between the 2009, the 16. Miriam has that. And my last message with Miriam was they've finally just communicate. So not the guy that we had before. Can't remember his name. But this guy actually reached out to me, and I gave him Miriam's email address to where now they can start doing what they do. So where they are with that, I do not know, but sure Miriam will keep us posted as we go. So that's the latest I've heard on that.
And the last thing I have just from the territory board that I feel is important to mention, just maybe to clear up some things about the part-time pay, was the executive board that met. The mayor made a motion for Julie to move forward with the pay off the trial pay totaling $5,431 out of the part-time fire pay.
Correct. Which
Legal and correct.
yes, given, and the language was in there that if it was legal and there was no stipulations, which again, we went through this in the Board of Works meeting, that she's reached out to those.
I just feel like the allegations that I'm illegally trying to pay people like the fire.
I'm not sure where the.
No, I mean, you just said if it was legal, and you aren't paying us, so obviously.
No, we're doing our due diligence because her name's on it. So if there was nothing saying that we couldn't do it, it would have been done. But the agreement, my motion was to move forward. If there was nothing stopping Julie from doing it, the board agreed, let's do it. Julie did her research. She talked to the agencies that we talked about at the Board of Works meeting, who gave her the information. So at that point is where, yeah, so if had there been no objections or anything, that the State Board of Accounts, the IRS and all that said, you're good to go. The board agreed it was good to go, but that's not the consensus that she's gotten from her research, so.
And the last question I have, you were gonna let me know, I submitted for an encumbrance for that line item, and I didn't see.
For
it
what
for-
encumbrance, for what line item?
For
The
the fire.
53,
And you were gonna look it up to see, because it's not listed on the appropriation sheet as being encumbered.
You encumbered, but you didn't encumber for that. It wasn't written down for that, like the encumbrance that we have. It did not say for the pay part of it, like Amanda and I pulled it up. It was for other stuff. It did not say for pay.
If there were two encumbrance. letters.
Like we pulled them back out. It didn't say that on it. It had it for,
did those funds get encumbered for anything?
they did, but it was for equipment stuff. It was not for pay. Like we pulled. it
Which I
back
don't
up
think
and
that,
looked at it.
did that
I have
money,
copies of it in a folder downstairs that I kept for that purpose.
Okay.
It didn't specifically say pay. It was like Amanda and I pulled it up and looked at it again. And all the encumbrances that were sent and that were done at the end of the year, that line item was not encumbered for pay. It was encumbered for equipment and things that were like listed on it. Cause I asked that same question because he had questioned it and he said we did that. So I asked her to pull it. So when we pulled it from when it was sent to our office for the encumbrances, it wasn't listed as pay on there. It was listed as other things.
There was a second encumbrance letter, the one encumbrance letter that had the two
It-
separate line items.
Yes, and it was
Fire
stapled
gear.
together. Well, I have both of them. They're stapled
Yeah,
together.
And there was a second.
Like we
encumbrance
looked
letter.
at both of those. So all the encumbrances that were approved at the end of the year, she put all those on there, line by line by line, and we matched them all up.
which is
So
part of the, second to last meeting that we had.
Yes.
Yeah.
At the end of December. For the encumbrances.
Any other public comment?
Just for clarification, what are you're sending the cemetery stuff back to Miriam? What is Miriam doing? There was a lot of talk, so I don't know,
Mhm.
what are you sending her back, sending it back to her for her to draw up an ordinance with the stuff that you discussed?
She's gonna, yeah, if there's an ordinance, I don't think that the rates and all that will be determined yet, but basically to give the board,
Like an outline.
because she was supposed to be here today, she's got her first grandchild, so we will throw everything to her just to get more information on what direction I guess we need to get. So specific ordinances and rates and all that probably won't be in March, but they'll at least give the council a,
The
The
specifics.
fine details.
no, tonight was basically a presentation to the council to try to get a route, because obviously, as Carolyn said, there wasn't one before, so hopefully the goal is to have a streamlined route to where people could come in and we know what to do step for step, whereas we didn't before, so a lot to throw back to Miriam. She's probably gonna, yeah, so, yeah.
I think it probably wouldn't have been something that we needed, but we've been like putting it on the back burner for a little bit, and I've had several phone calls of people who wanting to purchase spots. And so when we have a waiting list
You
of
move
7 or 8 people who are now saying, hey, do you know anything about this? And one family even said, if you can't find anything soon, might have to go another direction. So I said, well, we kind of need to get this ball rolling.
Yep, once you get into the weeds, there's a lot more.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there's a,
Just want to say something to the chief about the firemen that were paid. I felt bad about that. I understand your frustration because I'd be highly pissed off if I was in your shoes. But because of, I've said in one of those meetings, Julie's liable for anything that she signs or does. And the bureaucracy of our government is ridiculous. And if you don't hit it just right, you're in trouble. And we barely got through last year's. Because there's so many little things they nitpick to death. But it seems like to me, there would be some way to figure this out and not take a whole lot more time. And I'm not sure what that is.
Well, and that's what we're working on. I said, it's not something that we're brushing off and don't want to do.
I
And
know
I think
that.
that's been the consensus of, they're just not. And I don't want to say, we're not trying to not pay them by any means. We're just trying to make sure it's done correctly so that it doesn't come back on us with
So,
fines and that.
Is there an avenue we're going down to figure the rest of this?
Well,
out, or-
in the
or-
Board of Works,
I
there's.
think they said payee. We're gonna look into the payee certification, so
so
see if that's something that's,
Look at whatever, And if they give me the green light, I have no problem doing it.
I just wanted to make that clear to everybody.
Right.
We're still trying to figure out an avenue.
Yeah.
And hopefully it gets solved fairly quick because, you know, those guys have waited a long time.
You say like to try not to drag it out for too long. It's every time, whether it's the fire hydrant contract, whether it's how can we pay for water based on an ordinance in the law in the city that already exists for how people pay for water if it's not metered. And if there was supposed to be a discussion about it, and now that's to the attorneys, that's great, but it seems like it's never even discussed at the city board meetings unless I bring it up. Like this stuff is going on in the background.
If it's going to attorneys, we have to wait for them to figure that part out though, right? I mean. And we just had, how many attempts did we try with our first attorney?
I understand that, but like the discussions aren't even happening. Right? They haven't happened for how many months?
Let's discuss it now.
Because you gotta have you gotta have the options to discuss.
Perfect question. There's an ordinance that has temporary water users under the city ordinances that sets out how much a bulk water person would use. Like if I brought a tanker in to fill a pool, here's how much water I pay for it because it's not going through wastewater. It's flat water heat, right? It says exactly how much water costs.
But can I tell you, I just talked to the water superintendent and what you gave us at the meeting is for residential. It doesn't apply to the fire hydrants that you would be taking the water from and it doesn't, that's.
It would be a different
residential-
rate because it's
It
a
would be a
4 or
different
6
rate.
inch line, so.
Somebody get 100,000 gallons of water for temporary use out of their spigot and pay for that. That's not true. It's temporary water users, meaning I don't have a house. I'm not filling it with my own. It's
Do you fill a tanker from your house or do you fill your tanker from a fire hydrant?
you're
So
right.
so the 2 inch line that goes into a house is the rate that you get on your water bills that says if you use 2 cubic feet, you get whatever, then the third is where it goes up an additional fee.
Right.
A fire hydrant with a 4 inch line or 6 or,
They're 8 and 10. now.
yeah,
But
it's,
that's not that's water, a residential user that has the 2 inch line is not a temporary user. They are a metered user,
sure, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
A temporary user is somebody who doesn't have a house or access to a
right.
private spigot, whatever, that would get water from the hydrant or wherever the city would say, I'm coming to town, I need to bore lines under the street. Where am I supposed to get water from? Right? They don't have a house they go hook up to.
Right.
So they use the city infrastructure, i.e. fire hydrants, to get their water. And we discussed here and at the executive board that how would we be able to pay for how much, or how would we know how much water we use? The options were, A, the city could put meters on every hydrant, which would cost millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Or B, it's 2,000 gallons a tanker and it's 1,000 gallons an engine. Each time we fill it up, we have a thing on a report that says we use 8,000 gallons of water. And the only thing we need from the city is to determine, do you want us to pay that once a year? Do you want us to pay that every 6 months or quarterly? How do you want us to pay it?
Yeah.
The ordinance is designed exactly for this situation.
I don't think the territory board's even come up to a conclusion on that answer yet. So I don't know what the council's gonna,
If
the
you have
council's
other
gonna decide.
relationships That come to help and assist with the fire. Are you keeping track of
There's
their-
never been an agreement with the territory board yet that I know of that would be presented to the council. Does that sound accurate or?
The minutes say that you presented this at the last one and you needed an action item from the board to discuss.
Which we were waiting on the attorneys to draw up something
I guess I would
to
speak that.
present to the board.
So is your original question, like, why hasn't this board discussed it? I think that by and large, like, I am not involved. I don't know that Spencer's involved in this. This is mostly Julie, Mayor, Fire Department and you. But I don't know that anything is within our scope of figuring out when we do have 2 attorneys that desperately need to talk.
Yep.
So when you brought up like the contradictions and the ordinances, like, I don't know the law behind all this, so like, I'm not gonna be able to figure that out. So I think a lot of it from the council perspective is just waiting for these attorneys to talk. So I don't know that you're going to get much out of us.
That's
Apparently
useful.
we can get all
Until
our
there's
lawyers
a
to try
document
to
or
find
something that's
lawyers
written up
after
by
the
attorneys to
conversation.
present to the council. Now that's, we can discuss it, but until there's an actual discussion that takes place and mutual agreement that they can present something to you that's not, my letter has not gonna do us any good. It's an attorney language from both attorneys that agreement, an action item from the council. That's what's needed to happen. The problem is we just finally made contact with the,
But you
The
just
attorney,
gave us
so-
a recommendation, so it's like, maybe that can be forwarded to the attorneys.
yeah,
maybe
and I don't know if
something
Miriam has
faster.
had
Is that-
contact with him to discuss the rates or, I don't know where they are with that
Further
part of it.
discussion.
That seems reasonable to me,
Yeah,
what you're
so-
saying, but
Reason I feel like it's important to ask is because we got another invoice for $5,000 for a hydrant.
And what did I tell you about the invoice? We sent all of those out and she said, what do you want me to do? And I said, just go ahead and put one there so that they know that we've sent them out. Where I wasn't asking you to pay it, I put it in there so that you were aware that the fire hydrant thing went out. We still hadn't discussed and come to a resolution for it. It wasn't a, you need to pay this. And we talked about it at the board meeting because you said, we got this. And I said, it's okay. I just put it there for your knowledge, not because I was expecting you to pay it.
Which that's
So I
part
just
of,
wanna make that
another part of the
perfectly clear.
discussions is they're working up that hydrant. I hate the language rental. I did some research on why they call it hydrant rental. But the attorneys are looking to see the 2009 to 16 language that didn't match up when it went from Tri-Township to the territory. So is there a way now that with the different tax structure, with it being a territory now, if that's something that's obsolete because they're paying it from their actual taxes into the county? We're trying to figure out, does the county gets some kind of fire protection tax, right? So, yeah, so we're trying to figure out if that comes in, if someone pays that from their home and the county gets it, we're trying to find out where does that fund? We called the courthouse last week and asked him, we couldn't get an answer to where,
Put it into territory. That's where we get our money for our budget.
there's also a tax that goes to the county, correct? Miriam said there's some kind of tax that goes to the county and then they distribute it to the city.
Everybody that lives in the 3 townships that we cover have a special fire protection tax on their tax bill.
Because we looked at two and it wasn't on there.
And that money goes directly to the Tri-Township Fire Territory. That's where we get our budget money. from.
Okay, because we looked at two people that live outside the city limits, their taxes, and there was nothing on there about fire protection. So that's where we're scratching our head, then where's that pot of money? If it's not coming from their taxes, where's it getting sent to? If it's getting sent directly to the territory, how? It wasn't on their tax statements.
It gets sent through the county like everybody's tax bill, and then they get it sent to the city council here, like the city budget under the fire.
But it didn't show that they
True,
even
but
paid
on
it.
the tax breakdown, it says on there what each line, like what the tax stuff is listed on there.
It didn't
So
have
like,
it.
I was literally looking at one that's outside of city limits. It's nowhere listed on there, fire anything. Like they have this tax, that tax, whatever. They tell you what the installment where everything, and there's nothing listed on there for fire. So that's where Cameron and I were confused and we're like, okay, so if that's the case, then where is this? So hence the phone call. to
Because it
figure
used to
out-
be the townships had that money went to the townships before it was a territory. And now it's a different structure. So it wasn't on two people's, I reached out to my dad. I said, Dad, I need to look at your tax statement. It wasn't on his. It wasn't on my brother's. They live in the county, so I'm just trying to figure out that structure of it. But again, that's gonna be a part of the whole hydrant rental with water being taken out of the city. The 2009 to 2016 language did not match up for the duration of the time. We figured that out through our research. So again, that's one of the 15 things that Miriam has to figure out with the attorney that the territory board, that when they draw up something to present to the council, by all means, it'll be on. Would love to put on an agenda and get it ironed out, but we have to have something to present to the council.
Well,
So
it's not immediate at this point because we're not saying you have to pay it. Just trying to figure it out.
right, it was
Yeah,
all,
right.
it was taken off
Because
the.
obviously it's
Yeah,
been a
so those
disaster.
automatic
We inherited
automatic
that from
invoices
Tri-
or whatever. Yeah, so it's just something that the language between the 2009 and 16 language, it didn't match up because it went from a territory or a fire department to a territory. That fixes another long list of Miriam's things that she's working on with now the attorney that was chosen, and they finally made contact. We went for 6 months with no contact after several attempts. So, the effort was there to talk to him, but we never got any response back till I believe last week. So
The two people you looked at, are they in the township, the 3 townships?
My dad lives on Horseshoe Bend,
The one I looked at. was
so
in
that's
Tippecanoe,
Tippecanoe Township. Yep.
Is or not?
It is, yeah. So I just wanted to see, is there something on there that says fire protection or something that it's on your, it shows you what your taxes are going for, but it wasn't on his, it wasn't on my brother's, it wasn't on my uncle's, so. So just trying, that's what we were looking into last week, so, yeah. Any further public comments? Hearing none, there's one last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 7 o'clock on the dot. Thank you, guys.